Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, June 11th, 2:12 p.m., and I hereby call to order the Budget Committee of the Memphis City Council. Mrs. Keaton, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Green. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington. Councilman Warren. And Chair Carlisle.
Present. The chair observes quorum. Colleagues, we have one item on today's agenda, which is a presentation from the Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. Memphis area. I think it's actually Metropolitan. I think it was Memphis Transit Authority. It was MTA, then Metropolitan. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. With that being said, welcome for your budget hearing. If we get names and titles for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Bakara Sanderson Malden, and I'm the interim president and chief executive officer of the Memphis Area Transit Authority. I'm joined today by a delegation that includes our executive leadership team, Eric Stevenson, over strategic programs and partnerships, Keith Watson, safety and security, Thomas Daverson, labor and employee relations, Anthony Amos, compliance, Brendan Matthews, operations, John Lancaster, our development officer, and Tiffany Casey, chief administrative officer. Transparency and fiscal responsibility are two of my core leadership values, and on day 2 of my tenure as the interim CEO, I retained the services of an external CFO to aid in the execution of those values. Joining me at the table is Hamish Davison with the firm of J.S. Held. He is not just a numbers guy. He's actually a forensic accountant with over 30 years of experience that includes experience in the transportation sector. The roots of MATA go back 128 years to its origins as the Memphis Transit Company, which was a private organization providing transportation services since 1896. So, Councilman Carlisle, you were not too far off in your MTA assertion. This company was eventually purchased by the city of Memphis and was chartered in the Memphis City Code as the Memphis Transit Authority and later the Memphis Area Transit Authority. Today, MATA operates 23 routes, covering a service area of 280 square miles, which for reference is larger than the service area of the New York MTA bus system. We have a fixed route service, ADA paratransit, on-demand, or microtransit. Those two terms are used interchangeably. We have a streetcar trolley system as well. Our system has 3,691 bus stops, 145 bus shelters, and we currently have 512 wonderful employees. Last year, in addition to the allocation of a little more than $30 million, the council went back and added funding that took our budget allocation up at that time to almost $32 million. And if you have not heard this before from MATA, please hear me today when I say thank you. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your belief in our organization. The City of Memphis, as our chartering organization, has historically been our largest source of funding. Simply put, you're our lifeline. The funds that you allocate annually, they fund our operations, and they serve as our source of cash flow. This year, our budget request is for $30,670,000, which makes up about 36% of our projected FY25 budget. So, as you might imagine, we will definitely take more and put it to good use on your behalf if you allocate it to us. Our proposed annual budget, as you heard, is $84,211,321. The largest expense, as you might imagine, are wages and fringe benefits. We sit in the logistic hub of the nation. And so as a transportation service provider, the cost of doing business is a little bit more. In order to be competitive, we have to pay a little bit more. And so our wages and our fringe benefits take up a little bit more of our budget. We've discussed for months the need for skilled mechanics and professional operators. And so again, that is why our wage costs are a little bit more. And the cost of fuel is at a record high. If you don't believe me, just go to your local gas pump and imagine what we have to pay to fill up our buses and our service vehicles. So those are the two major drivers that have increased our budget for FY25. More than a year ago, our team, along with Councilman Ford Canale, traveled to DC to meet with the associate administrator of the Department of Transportation. And in that meeting, we talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that he talked about was the fact that funding operations, they see it as a local function. And so with that, I think he came back with more energy. And of course, we had a renewed purpose to continue to see how we can work to close the gap within our budget. You know, you all know that my mother recently passed away, and she was a community advocate and a community service in her own right who imparted many lessons. And one of the lessons that she imparted was that to fix a problem, you have to first acknowledge that it exists. We recognize that there's a gap between our budget. Financial challenges are not new to matter, but the funding gap has been growing for many years. Our team has a plan to seek additional sources to increase revenue. Our team is committed to taking a long and hard look in the mirror and refining our processes to rein in our spending and to bring our budget in line with our revenue. Beginning with my first day as the interim CEO, I've promised transparency and a commitment to transform transit in the Mid-South. And although the realization of the financial challenges are a bit challenging, it's the reality that MATA and several other transit agencies across the country are having to face right now. And that's due to the rising cost of doing business and the shift in ridership in general following the pandemic. But still, transition and transformation is possible with innovation, which is a perfect segue to our CIP budget. And within that budget, you will find a lot of our priorities. As you know, we need more buses on the road. And within that CIP budget request, there's a request for funding to do just that, to purchase more fixed route buses, to purchase more of the MATA Plus or buses that we use for our microtransit as well. There is also the last match installation of the Innovation Corridor BRT project, which is a key component of what I will call a complete mobility system. There is also funding requested to jumpstart the procuring of a new operations and maintenance facility. That's a project that we actually escalated in importance because we believe that we need to have that project online so that once we receive the electric buses that are a part of the Innovation Corridor project, we have a state-of-the-art facility to house and to maintain those vehicles. So as the leader of MATA, personally and professionally, I own what I've inherited. I own the problems, but I also own the engineering of the fix. I'm holding the steering wheel on what will drive Memphis and MATA to a better mobility. Our team is capable, they're committed, and they're determined to get us there. But we need some gas money. Or seriously, we need each of you to believe in and invest in the future of MATA. To dream about the possibilities for what a complete mobility system looks like, what a more efficient mobility system looks like. Mayor Young in his speeches, as well as each of you through our individual conversations and meetings, we all have a shared vision for Memphis to win. And in order to win in any sport, we have to score. You have to score in order to win. And MATA is going to do just that by stabilizing our finances, communicating transparently and consistently, operating efficiently and safely, reimagining what transit can look like in the Mid-South, especially right here in the core of our system here in Memphis. And of course, being engaged through every step of the process. We have to score in order to truly win as a city, and I am committed to working with each of you to transform transit in the Mid-South. Thank you again for this opportunity to present, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you all may have at this time.
Thank you so much, Chief. Appreciate the presentation. You mentioned reimagining and engagement. I think that's critical. And, coming out of the post-COVID era, I think we learned a lot about transportation and as technologies and best practices. Can you talk a little bit about the process of reimagining,
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that question. Reimagining transit here in Memphis, it's gotta be a group participation effort. It's something that we intend to engage each of you, the administration, our other elected officials, our riders, our community, our employees. We all have to work together, and we will be holding stakeholder meetings in all of our communities. We will be holding town halls with our employees. We will continue to engage each one of you through this process, but we will do this together. And so we'll have meetings in the community, and then we'll come out with some options that we can think about. And then we'll go back to the drawing board if those aren't right. But we will continue to work together to do this until we come up with a model that works best for our riders and for our communities. It's not a quick process, but we are committed to going through this process with each one of you and with our community overall.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. After we did it with land planning, we did it with transit vision, and things evolve and change. And, Memphis covers such a wide swath of territory, and it's not just Memphis, right? Obviously, we have out in the Shelby County workforce movements. So I think it's an incredible time and opportunity for us to take a look at, how we can do things. I think about a few years back, just going to the on-demand model, that change was met with a lot of consternation, and change can be hard, but you look back now 2-3 years later, and it's one of the best service models we have, and the citizens love it. And so it's, how do we expand that, and what are the opportunities there? So I think that'll be great. Is it safe to say that in the coming days, you'll be meeting with council members and setting up times for them to have town halls, et cetera, with their constituents?
That is correct.
That'd be great. And I assume this process was going to take, it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight.
It's going to take some time because we want to make sure that we reach every community through this process, that we get to talk to each one of you as well as our other stakeholders. We really want to make sure that at the end of the day, the reimagining of what transit looks like is a process and a plan that we can all get behind and know that we played a part in it.
Thank you. Councilman Warren?
Yes, one of the things I recall was that since we're still not a huge area transit authority, and we got Blue Oval expanding, it's my impression that if we actually were involved in more communities and more places, our opportunities for federal funds would be greater. Is that correct?
That is correct.
As you're doing this reimagining, I want you to be thinking about how are we getting to Blue Oval? How are we going out that I-40 corridor to make part of this reimagining, making us a true area transit authority?
Yes, sir. And
Thank you.
we couldn't agree more.
No, I said it was a great question. Do you want me to say it again? Well played, Councilman Warren. Councilwoman Swearengin Washington.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask, what accountability measures have you put in place to ensure that everything is going the way it should go?
Well, we are currently in the process of redesigning those accountability measures right now. That is one of the charges that I've given the external CFO that we've brought in. We're reviewing all of our processes. We're looking at all of our practices. We're looking at everything and reimagining internally as well. And so I'm looking forward to reporting back as I continue our reporting cadence about exactly how MATA continues to evolve.
Do you have pretty much the same team that they had under the previous administration?
No, ma'am. There have been some changes since I've taken the helm in February.
Okay. How many people have you changed out?
There've probably been at least, I guess, a good 8 to 10 people, even towards the top. I would say half of the people that were in the C-suite have been switched out.
Now, if you were given additional buses, do you have the drivers, enough drivers to be able to handle?
We do have a significant amount of drivers, but we can always use more. And so as attrition happens through our operations, we will continue to recruit for drivers because we want the best and the brightest in that. That's the storefront for Matter. So it's very important. We started an initiative since taking over calling Nurturing Our Staff from Recruitment to Retirement. And so as we continue to do that, we want to continue to get the best and the brightest. So, but we do have enough drivers to meet the needs that we have right now.
Now, a lot of times when I'm seeing people on buses, you don't see the buses being full like they used to be. Do you think buses is the way to go? Should we be leaning more towards the vans or smaller vehicles?
Well, what we're looking at actually is a mobility microcosm that includes both. I always talk about the model that has the outer circle and the inner circle with a cross. So let's just say the outer circle represents the smaller vans or the microtransit or on-demand areas. In the less densely populated areas, we're looking at utilizing the smaller vans and the microtransit to transport those people within the zones, connect to a tighter, more efficient fixed route area. That's a model that has actually been proven to work in many cities across the country, and we do believe that a model similar to that will work eventually in the city of Memphis. And those are some of the things that we're hoping that we can discuss as we go through the optimization and just reimagining process.
Do you have to have a CDL license, excuse me, for the vans?
No, ma'am, you don't.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I've got Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation and for availing yourself prior to now for us to talk. But I would like to see when you all come back, and actually when you meet with the council members, particularly myself, are the hard numbers in terms of what the ridership looks like. What is the need in our city in numbers and data? And how did you ascertain that? And how you're going to meet that need based on who we are now and who you foresee us going to be? Because I know there are a lot of aspirational things prior to when you all would come each month, and it felt good and we were hopeful, but it didn't really pan out that way because it really didn't seem to fit. We had high hopes and we want to be that high speed, high tech mobility. And I think we will get there. But right now, how do we meet the needs of the people right now at the budget that we have, and continue to project where we need to be and what do we need to do to have the capital to get to that, because I don't want to put the cart before the horse. And I don't know if it seems as though that may have been what we were doing or really wanting to get there. And you and I have talked about some potential opportunities or collaboration that may be in our city that could get us there. But I do want to see how we're going to pull in some of those entities that we can collaborate with and really lean into them, like Ford and like Elon Musk and Nike and all these other people that that need the workers, that need people to get there, but aren't fully in this conversation. And so I would like to, discuss that and what your efforts have been to reach out to them and engage other people, as well as right size where we are right now as a community. Because, when you all were doing the conversations, I guess a survey or something that was done, it appeared that the on-demand model was the model that people wanted and needed, and the numbers reflected that. But I keep hearing that we need more buses, we need more electric buses, we need more, and we know those buses, based on what you said, like $1 million, $2 million, or whatever per bus. And if we need 1 trillion buses, then they're $1 million a piece. That's going to be very difficult and challenging to get there. So I don't want us to not right size. So when we have that conversation, if you can bring that information, I would greatly appreciate it. I appreciate your sensible approach to where we need to be, how we need to get there. So if, when we have that conversation, because that's the only thing that's going to matter at this point, the dollars, then the dollars got to make sense.
Right.
So thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that question. And one of the things that I look forward to bringing when I talk to you is we actually have a heat map that shows, it plots out, and I'll be sharing that with all of the council. It's a heat map that actually plots out all of our bus stops. And it shows, according to the heat map, which ones are the ones that are highly used versus the ones that aren't as much. And so what you will find is the further away from the core of the city you get, the smaller those dots get on that heat map, which also kind of substantiates why we're looking at a model where we can utilize the fixed route buses in order to serve the larger pools, the population pools, more efficiently. And you have the smaller vehicles on the perimeter that can actually serve the residential areas, the communities, and then feed into the larger, more efficient core. And that way, we'll be able to have our fleet augment in the proper way, where it'll be easier to maintain the larger buses for the more efficient fixed route. And then we can get the smaller Ford Transits, if you will. That's what we currently use. I'm not endorsing a brand, but we currently use the Ford Transits for the ADA paratransit and for the on-demand service.
And I think that's how you started. I remember being a part of the Innovate Memphis Transit Vision process, and it talked about ride share, riding bicycles, all kind of things that were going to be a part of the larger conversation. But as we continued to discuss it, we kept going back to the buses. And so I'm looking forward to getting back to those other ways that we can be mobile and get to places without using those big buses all the time.
Agreed. And the more that we can get other modes of mobility online, it does even out the need to use those larger buses, which I think in the long run will help us be able to better do our asset management and manage our fleet.
Councilman Warren wants you to know that includes the Green Line.
Duly noted.
I've got Councilwoman Green and then Councilwoman Walker.
First, I want to say thank you for coming and for doing what I think leaders should do, which is take ownership and accountability. I appreciate you doing that. I also want to say that, I can't speak for everyone up here, but I do believe we're all Team Memphis, and in general, we believe that public transportation is a good thing, something that we should be supporting. I am curious on your projected revenue generally about the contribution from Shelby County government, only because I have another job, and I happen to know that in the budget right now is about 1.2 million, and this is projected 10. And so I guess I don't need a firm answer or anything today. If that is a real number, I believe they meet tomorrow about budget, and I guess we'll know. And so then as we have meetings after that, if that line needs to be adjusted, I would like real numbers and not wishful numbers, I guess, from the county. I think we're very lucky right now to have a mayor and a commission on the county side that supports MATA because we know they don't have to. And I think this would be an incredible investment on their part if they were to be able to make that, and I just know that's not what is currently in the budget. So you don't have to answer me today. I hope you're working tomorrow, and I know I'll be. And when we meet, let's make sure that that's a real number.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yes, ma'am, duly noted. We do have a official request of the county for 10 million.
Thank you. Councilwoman Walker.
Good afternoon.
Good
Thank you for
afternoon.
coming, and I just want you to know that I want you to be successful, and I want MATA to be successful. I have two questions. The first one is you speak about this reimagining model. Could you elaborate a little bit about increasing your EV fleet? Because there's so much federal funding out there for the EVs. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question, and happy to, because that's one of the most exciting parts of transit right now, actually, is the transition from diesel to clean energy. And so the operations and maintenance facility that we are looking to construct is actually going to be a zero emission bus facility where we will only be servicing electric vehicles. The Innovation Corridor BRT project, part of the funding for that project includes 40 electric buses. And those would be in addition to the 3 that we currently have. And so that entire project is supposed to be electric buses. The federal government in general has a push to have all transit into clean energy by 2030 is the goal. Now that may change, but that's the goal that we're operating under right now. I think they're going to slow down just a little bit because we're trying to let the supply chain catch up with the demand and really drive to really make the technology behind EV buses the range be a little bit more and make them more reliable, especially when you have large areas like the one that we have in Memphis. We really need to have electric vehicles that have that range to be able to be reliable on the road. But we are committed to it. Full disclosure, we are going to continue to get a few diesel buses to keep going while we get electric buses, just to make sure that we can attain some level of consistency for our riders. But we are committed to moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you for that. And this facility that you're referencing, do you have the price tag for that yet?
I don't have the full price tag for that now. We're going through the design process and we'll have the final numbers. We have already received a grant that covers most of the funding for the vehicle already. That was one of those discretionary grants that we received. I believe it was the RAISE grant. And that actually was to the tune of $50 million specifically for that facility. And so we do have that in place. We have sought additional funding so that we can enclose that building because we have found that electric buses perform better when they're stored in a climate control area. And so we're hoping to be able to get additional funding to enclose that facility so that we can really get the most out of the vehicles that we're getting.
Okay, thank you for that as well. And finally, you mentioned something about employment to retirement. Can you explain the intersectionality between that and your reimagining?
Well, that's very important because our employees are the front line of the agency, and we are actually redesigning our training program to make sure that we do a better job of onboarding our team, whether it be operators, whether it's mechanics. That's very important, setting realistic expectations for what they are going to encounter on the job and giving them the tools to be able to meet and exceed the expectation of excellence. One of the things that I talked about even during our negotiations was that if we are going to pay for professional employees, we need to have professional employees, but we can only do that if we give them the tools to be successful. And so that is what nurturing employees from recruitment to retirement is all about. And then continuing as things evolve, as new technology comes online, as new advances are made, keeping the employees informed, making them feel like they are a critical part of the infrastructure of this agency. And that is something that we are really putting a big focus on.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Great questions. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for coming and your presentation. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for answering all the questions that I sent to you and sending them back in a timely manner. but we are in a very critical position. And you talk about reimagining. If I'm not mistaken, MATA is 65 million, am I correct, in the hole?
But the,
Then I'm just gonna close out because I've been advised. I want to see MATA be successful.
yes, ma'am.
And I'm trying to be very transparent around it. You inherited a seat. And I respect you highly.
You don't.
No, she didn't stop me from talking. She just, no. Let me clarify. Thank you, Chairman. She did not stop me from talking. I needed to rephrase a statement that I was, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Back to you. Thank you for letting us know that you have gotten a new team aboard. My prayer for you and for this city and this entire MATA situation is that we really, really support you 100% in what you're trying to do, okay?
Thank you.
Just know, and I'm trying to be very careful with my wording, that I know this is hard, but we will see this through with you as a city. And I think that when we meet personally and we're able to talk, we can iron out some more things. But I think the city wants to see you successful. We need MATA. We need MATA. Our constituents.
I agree.
Our constituents need MATA. And so it breaks my heart to see the state that we're in, but we will see this through. Okay? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, thank you. I don't see anybody else in the queue. I'll just close out and reiterate the Councilwoman's comments. The City of Memphis, the Memphis City Council is fully committed to supporting MATA. It is critical to core services and workforce development and opportunity. The city is committed to funding MATA at the level it's always funded that it has always funded. I know the council is committed to that. I don't think anybody has any intentions on reducing. So the city of Memphis, at least the city council, is fully committed to funding at the level we have always funded. And I look forward to the reimagining process. That, like I said, COVID, was a good opportunity, as scary and terrible and awful as it was in the past. One of the things that came out of it was the on-demand services and how we run it. And Memphis is a great opportunity to reimagine that. So I look forward to the meetings and the shreds and the community engagement piece and working through it. I think there's nothing but opportunity ahead for us. And so we thank you and we look forward to it. And we'll dismiss the MATA team now. Thank you for your time.
Team? Chairman, is this her new team?
This is part of the team.
Is this part of your team?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then colleagues, I guess, if anybody has any major amendments, but my understanding is that we've got new budget books coming this evening or first thing in the morning. And then yesterday there was a significantly large dump of information. If your staff, if you need to have your staff print it out and bind it for you, because of that, the significant amount of information that came in, we can sit here, but my guess is that everybody wants time to look that over. I started looking over it last night. It was a lot. But here's what has to happen, please, myself included. I would like to get about 85 to 90% of the way through the budget tomorrow. That means down to the last probably what I would call 10, 15, $20 million of I don't want to call it discretionary, but about 84% of the budget goes to personnel. And so we've got some things that we need to work for that are big blocks, and I think we can tackle that early. But typically what usually happens is we get down to that kind of last, is it going to be that project or this project, that initiative or this initiative, that collective bargaining unit, not that one. We have to start making those votes. I'm going to start forcing, and I know that I've held us off a lot. I'm going to start forcing that vote tomorrow because I just feel like it's time to start putting some of these things to bed as we're starting to get down to those last several council-led initiatives or mayor-led initiatives. This is also for the public. I see several vested members and media. We are going to start dealing heavily tomorrow with the budget and start getting what will ultimately be what the tax rate looks like. That conversation will happen tomorrow. I don't care if I have to be here till midnight or longer. But well, the point is though is that and I'll just go ahead and say this: we have a new council, we have a new administration, we have the end of federal funding, we have a lot of moving pieces. And so, yes, admittedly, this budget season has not been as smooth as I would have liked to have been. But I'm also happy that we've taken our time and we've gone through it and people have gotten comfortable. As frustrating as I know that can be for the public, ultimately the idea is to make sure that everybody on the body, when they go to press the button on Tuesday the 25th, is very comfortable that they're doing it with all of that information and committed to that decision, because once you press that button, you own it. So with that, I'm going to adjourn us. We will meet here tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please come early. Please come ready. If you have any questions or concerns, I know Walter and his team and all the directors are ready to go. If you have an ad, I will do that. If you have an ad, I'm not saying that you have to have a deduct tomorrow, but please have an idea of where you think you're going to balance it. If you're going to start moving money around, let's try and have a pathway to how you think you're going to do that. Either a revenue increase or a cut. You gotta. So with that, we are adjourned. Oh,
what? The budget books are coming when?
The updated budget books, I'm hoping, are ready later this evening, but more than likely tomorrow morning.
In the morning.
Yeah, in the morning. I understand that. I appreciate that. This is a committee hearing for the council with the administration. I thank you. Ms. Moses, I've always been very respectful for you. I wish you would be the same for me. But clearly that's not going to happen today. Yes, sir.
I guess my question is, we're getting this big budget book tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
And then we're going to be making decisions starting tomorrow night with this budget book. Are we going to work through it? It's going to be a working decision process.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Let my style, in case you haven't noticed. What has happened in the past is somebody will begin starting making resolutions, and then it creates this wave of panic that if your resolution does not make it in there somehow, it's not going to have a fair shot. I do not like doing that because it rushes us and we end up in the North 40. Everyone will have a fair opportunity. And here's the deal, council members. If you vote to approve something that a member brings and we get down to finally actually wrapping it up, we may have to cut it 10% or, but tomorrow is the time I want, and Councilman Warren has been very patient, to get council-led initiatives, things that are important to you, onto the table, because we're going to eventually have to whittle it back. But everyone will have a fair opportunity, and we will meet as needed. I will not push a single member of this body into a vote that they don't want to make because we didn't have enough time for you. So that's my commitment to you guys. But yes, as frustrating as it is, I've got to start getting us going. Mayor Young has a big push for an additional $20 million of funding. We need to make a vote on that, whether it's 20, 10, 5, whatever that is. We got to start putting it in place. And so it's going to be a little bumpy, but